And so I thought I'd try to show you a workflow that's always worked for me, but also, my whole philosophy of art in general is to take chances and invite the accident. And also you want to understand and control the software, but it's so much more fun and engaging. And also, if you just are inclined to take chances, and here's the deal with digital imaging, you're not taking any chances. It's a digital file, so it's an exact copy. So I thought it'd be beneficial just to show you a workflow and a best practice that tends to work for me and give you a typical example. Now I'm just going to fly by the seat of my pants here and just play and make an image real quick. So but I want to show you my process for how I go about doing that. So I'm going to start over here with Photoshop, I guess. And a real typical thing is I get a lot of yoga images. My wife runs a yoga studio in town. So I'm going to do what I should do always with anything that deals with print. I go over to my file and start here. And I go to New, and I pick Print. And I tell Photoshop I'm working in print so that it knows that my default's going to be 300 resolution. And then also I'm working in tabloid size. So it's going to be 11 by 17 inches at 300 DPI, RGB color, white background, all defaults when you tell it you're working in print. And then also, because she's at least starts horizontal, I'll work landscape, as they say, as well. So 17 by 11 inches. And I'll hit create. And we're going to do everything into that window. So the first thing I'm going to do, rather than this untitled, I tend to forget what the names of the files are I'm working on. So let's go ahead and save that. So file, save as, and I'll just save on my computer. That's new. And I'm just going to put it anywhere for right now. I'm going to call it yoga test or yoga poster or something like that. And we're set as type. Now this is a new dialog box for me too. Cancel that. Let's go file, save as. Save on your computer. I'm using the most recent version of Photoshop, so I'm looking where it gives me an option to not save it as a JPEG. Oh, it must be on this disclosure bar there now. Okay, it's a little different than the Photoshop version you're using in the labs or at home. But what we want to put it over to is TIFF, tag image file format. That's what we're going to be living in. We get to keep our alpha channels and layers and intact, and that's what we want. And also it compresses it, but it's lossless compression. So we always want to do that. Untitled one's no good. So I'm going to call it Photoshop. Oh, yoga test. I'm sorry. And then click Save Away. And we want LZW compression, and we click OK. So we should be good to go. And then we go back to the image that we've either downloaded or taken ourselves or whatever. And I'm going to Control click or Command click on the Mac. A, select all. Command C, copy. And then go to my masterpiece, my yoga test, and Command V, paste. And that's what I'm working with. And that's how you know what you're working with. So when you download images off the internet and you paste them into a tabloid size window at 300 DPI, there's no surprises. That's what you're working with. And that's how you should approach things. You always archive your original scans or your original images out of your camera and copy and paste them into the document that you're going to send to the printer. You'll flatten a version of that and send to the printer. So we'll start with this. Now, this is an image that doesn't belong to me. I got it off the internet. I don't have the rights to it. And I'm just going to manipulate this. So part of what's going through my mind is being fair to the original person that's in that photo, but also the original photographer that took that picture. So I've collected a few pictures. Here's a nature scene, probably not the right size. I'm going to Command C, copy it, and then go to the yoga test that I'm working on and paste. Sure enough, not even close to big enough, but it might look good in the middle of her chest as a blending mode. We'll see what happens. See what else I got. I got that one. I'm going to copy it. Command C, and then go over here and paste. And that's a fairly large size image, as you can see. I'm just collecting my images and layers over here. So I'll go back and kind of see what else I got. That's one I'll play with a little bit later. Okay, that's good. I'll select all. You notice these images sort of have something to do metaphorically with yoga. Go back to my tabs up in here. and then paste away. Oops. Paste. Oh, got the same one in memory, so let's go back and get that one again. Select all, copy, paste. There we go. Again, too small. That's okay. We'll fix that. What else have I got? I think I have a better flower than that. Don't I? Maybe not. Thought I had a lotus flower. We need to get one. So I'll just go online real quick. Can I share that one real quick? Screen, share. Let's go get a lotus flower. Some really nice images in here too, by the way. I just did a search and limited them to large, and some really nice sunsets and things that we could probably use in lieu of the one I picked, you know. But actually, I'll probably just use the flower I got in there, even though it may not be a lotus flower. It won't matter, and I may not even get to that. So I'm just going to go back to my masterpiece where I'm just kind of collecting these, and I think I'll start at the top with maybe something like, wait a minute, I think I've got one more in here somewheres. Is it on... I think it's this beach landscape. Yeah, I like that water in there and see what that does. So I'm going to copy that image and then go back to Photoshop, and I'm going to paste, Command V. And good, nice big image. Didn't realize that. Let's actually start with that one and see what it looks like. So I'm going to turn off my eyeballs. And again, I just copied all of these layers intact. Pull it up here so we can see it a little bit better. The ladies on the bottom. Actually, the background white's on the bottom. We've got the yoga lady there, and we've got the sunset on top, and it's just about in the right position in terms of where that woman's sitting too, right? If you're a luck there. So I'm going to take that image and start to play with some of these blending modes. Let me put this share back onto Photoshop. There we go. So it's opaque blending mode. Let's just start at the top and go down. Darken, multiply. I usually toggle the whole phone book here. Okay, kind of starting to like what's happening with this, with color burn, with some of that water that's happening in the background. So I'm going to stop real quick, and I'm going to go to my image, and I'm going to duplicate under image, duplicate. And it's going to make a little copy, yoga test copy, it's going to call it, and that sounds good. So I'm going to click OK. And that yoga test copy is what I'm going to build on. The only thing I'm interested in is that water. I probably won't use anything else in this image. And what I need to do is go over to the little disclosure bar in the layers palette and open it up and flatten the image. It's going to warn me, and sounds good. No more blending modes. So I'm going to build on this one. I'm going to go back to my yoga test that has these layers, and I'm going to continue with this color burn and see what else I've got with some of these other things. I may or not. Oh, look at that. I like that a little bit better now, or at least parts of it I like a little bit better. No? Let's try that. So I'm going to take that lighten. I think that head is now legal too, or at least ethically legal. So I'm going to take that and pause, and same process here. I go over to my edit menu, come down to, my image menu, come down to duplicate. It's going to ask me to give it a name. I'm going to make a disposable little copy of that file. Now this copy, I'm going to go to my layers palette and over here, and I'm going to take the disclosure and come down to flatten image again. It's going to warn me, no more blending modes. So I'm going to select all, Command A. I'm going to go back to the yoga test, the one that I'm building on, the one that has the copy next to it. And I'm going to paste away. It should line up perfectly. Oh, I copied the wrong thing, didn't I? Let's go back over here. Let's select all. Let's copy. Let's go over to yoga test and paste. Okay. So remember the ocean's down there too. I can still use that if I wanted to. This whole idea of just finding sections that you think are working and then exploiting those. So if I want to milk some of that ocean back in there, I need to isolate the figure, right? And how hard is it to do that right now? That's pretty isolated. So if I, as a shape, so if I'm active in that layer and I go up and take probably use my magic wand tool, frankly, but if I take my quick selection tool and paint out that body, it's going to do a pretty good job up there. Doesn't need to be a finessed selection at all, because I'm not going to use the body. What I want to do is show some of that background in this image. But now that I've got that foreground element selected, whenever you have something selected, it knows you're trying to create a mask. And so if you put a mask on it, it will mask it for you. Now, if I do that right now, it's going to mask everything but that figure, and that's what I want. So what I just did is I poked a hole in everything. You can see the transparent background there, allowing that background to show through. So now the image is really starting to look like mine. Haven't played with much else yet and see what happens. But as a start and as an iteration, starting to look pretty healthy and interesting. So let's go back to our original, and we're just going to play with these two. So let's go to the one we made a little disposable copy to get to that one. We just pasted it in the other document. Let's just close up that window so we don't get confused. It's easy to get too many copies going. So we're just going to go back and forth between this one that has the layers and the blending mode, and then we're going to find something we really like, and then we're going to turn it over to here. And what we're going to do is paste it on a top layer, put a mask on it, and just mask out what we want. And so we just go back and forth. I'm going to go back over here. Maybe I'll start to play with some of this stuff up in the top there, because I think that might do some really interesting things with the blending mode underneath it. And for starters, let's just turn off that eyeball again, and then just turn this on, see what happens. We're just doing iterations upon iterations, and I'm just going up that top, up and down it and seeing what happens. Really like what's happening there, right? With that face. And some of that's really nice too. But really, I'm just working on the head and the face is what I'm thinking about. So if I go back to some of the stuff that I was liking, like that, maybe this darken, I'm going to pretend. So, and again, the only thing I want is just this little space in here, maybe. So I'm going to do the same process, and I may not even use it, but at least it's there and I can try it. So I'm going to go up to image. This is just becomes a routine. Duplicate, make a little disposable copy, go over to the layers palette, go over to the disclosure bar, come down and flatten the image. No more blending modes. We're going to throw this away in a second. Command A, Control A, selects all. Command C, copies. And while we're here, and we copied that, I'll leave it there for just a second, but let's go to the one that we're building on. That's going to be our masterpiece. And if we select the layer, it's going to paste it in a layer above us. So let's do that. So now we've got that going on. Now this is a kind of a new, really starting to like some of this stuff too, but especially out in here. But this is a new workflow for me. That's what this looks like, and that's what 100% opaque. And if I turn the eyeball off, that's what that looks like below it. So I'll work a couple of ways. Maybe all I want is just that face in there, nothing else, just that face, because I think it changes it a little bit from that. I'm going to pretend, So what I do is take the image and put a mask on it. It's covered in white, meaning everything's showing below it. I'm using a normal blending mode, nothing changed there. And so what I'm going to do is take that mask and fill it with black, meaning it'll be hidden. So it'll still be there, it just will be hidden. And then I'm going to reveal it using a paintbrush and painting white into the image. So I'm painting with photography and painting this image back on top of what's below it. That's just a great workflow. And sometimes you just need a little sliver of something, hardly nothing on that layer. And that's what I'm going to pretend I want here. So I'm going to take that image and fill it with black. While it's selected, I Command A, select all. And I can go up to the fill menu and come down to fill. And one of our options besides content aware is black. That's what I want. So remember, it's still there, we just can't see it. So if I get a brush, and in this particular case, I don't want to see that circle that's going to create with the size of that brush. So I'm going to make it really soft. And also if I just click, it's going to, with white to reveal it in my thumbnail there, it's going to show all of it 100%. But if I just keep clicking, now she's looking really ghastly. But we got a sunset going. And then over in here too, maybe I'll bring some of that back that I saw. Am I still painting with 100% there? Probably not. 40%. So that's why. Let's make it 100%. and then put it on black and hide it again. So remember, it's still there. It's just hidden. And remember, I can always control click on that mask or right click it and disable it for just temporarily, just to see, oh, that's what's there. And then right click it again and enable it back again. And so you can see some of the stuff that's happening below it. And maybe I'll make that a little darker because I just increased it. So if I paint that back in white at the bottom, and I'm not worried about the rectangle between rectangles and things like that. And up in here, same thing. I'll just click once and oops, I'm clicking with white. So I'm going to go up in here and make sure nothing's selected. Oops, too much. So 100% was too much. Command Z, undo. Bring that down to about maybe 30%, something like that. And then just slightly paint. And maybe even put some of that stuff in there too that was in that background. Here, sometimes I'll do that with a really big brush. Not quite that big, but almost. Yeah, because that way I can just click once or twice and just get some real subtleties there, especially with the opacity, just gradually bringing it up. So I'm starting to get there, something it's starting, things are starting to happen. That's yet another iteration. So what I would do is like file, save as, flatten that version and upload it to my blog and then continue to work. We haven't played with the lotus flower. Let's see. Oh, or the clouds. Let's go take a look at the cloud. And also that the outside edge is bothering me too. So I think that I might have cut it off in the mask here, but usually I would not have that rectangle show. I would fill it with content aware. Let's try the, where was it? Let's turn that eyeball off and go to this guy. Now that's not filling that space, right? So let's isolate it by Alt clicking the eyeball. And then let's select that background, one click with the magic wand tool, just like the duck. Select the background, and then we go up to select and then inverse that selection. Now we got the other area selected. And again, I'm gonna go, instead of content aware fill, I'm gonna come down to fill and content aware. Let's see here. Actually, I'll use that new trick. I'm gonna use edit, where is it? Edit, fill, no, this new one, content aware fill. I used to go to fill and then go to content aware. And when I do that, it does a great job, but cancel that for a second. Instead, I'm gonna go to fill, content aware, edit, content aware fill. This is brand new. And it tells you to use the sampling brush that's already selected to add to the sampling area. And that's what I'll do. I'll just go down here and I wonder why it's not letting me do it. Oh, huh, not working. Oh, because I'm not active in that layer. What's going on there? Oh, I didn't inverse the selection. Select, inverse, and then edit, content aware fill. Pick what you want to fill. And it's going to redraw it over here. And not too bad. A little worried about what's going on up in there, but I may clone stamp some of this stuff out, or I might even select that and do content aware again. So let's click OK. And if you look, it's on two different layers over here. Eyeballs on the top one. So while they're two selected, I'll go over to the little disclosure bar over here and I'll go to merge visible. And while that rectangle selected too, I think I might even try content aware again. So instead of going to edit content aware fill, this time I'm going to go to fill up in here and do it the old way. Instead of with black or pattern, I'll fill with content aware. And give it a whack. I always let Photoshop have a whack at it. I never know what it's going to do, but we'll see. I'm not much care for that. I'm going to Command Z, undo that, and I'm just going to leave it like it is. Instead, I think maybe what I'll do is just use the clone stamp tool and make it really big, really big. Yeah, and come down here and Alt sample. Why is that? All right. So I've got my sky. Not too bad. Let's turn our eyeballs back on again, and let's start playing with some blending modes. So let's just go down through here and see what happens. Some of these are not usable. And then if I turn the other eyeball on the other one that also has a blending mode on it, remember those guys that was doing that. So now let's try that same trick up in here with some of these other ones now, see what happens. Some underneath the real subtleties there. There's never any guarantees. We're always just kind of playing, stumbling around, seeing what happens. And I'm really just looking for little sections, not everything to work. It turns it to kind of a little bit of a different color. Let me try something else. I thought we had that one on, and yeah, that. So let's see what happens with that. Oops, got the wrong layer selected. I do that all the time. Some rich surfaces in there. Really starting to like some of the stuff that's going on there now. Starting to look really painterly in that face. Might just use some of those clouds too. So I might just take that image, duplicate, click OK, make the disposable copy, come over and flatten it, select all, go to the yoga test copy that I'm building on. No, it's actually this one, right? And then paste it above it. And remember that, is it the same one I had before? No, it's, yeah, maybe that is the new one, I don't know. There it is. I forgot to flatten it. So I forgot to duplicate the image, right? I just selected that layer. So let's, or maybe I didn't. Let's go ahead and take a look. No, here it is. This is the one I want. So select all, copy. And while I'm here, again, select all and copy. And let's just Command W, throw that away so we stop getting confused. And then go to this one that I'm building on, right? And we don't need that layer. And paste. Command V. I don't really like some of the stuff that's happening over in that corner, you know. But at any rate, I'm going to play that same game. I'm going to go over here. And instead of putting the mask on there and originally in black and then revealing it, which is always kind of fun. In fact, I'll do it that way. So that same workflow. So I'll go to Edit, Fill with black, and then start revealing some of that stuff that was in that background by poking holes in this mask with painting with white. That's a little big, that brush, so I come up and adjust it. That's a little small. Something in between the two is what I'm looking for. Yeah, I'm just kind of, again, just poking holes in this stuff, turn the eyeballs up the bottom, and just letting some of that stuff show through. And anytime I want to check what I'm missing, I can control click on the mask itself, or right click and disable it, and then right click and put it back again so I can kind of see what I'm missing. Really like some of that stuff that's happening over there. I want to bring some of that back, and I'm going to do it by doing it with a percentage of black, maybe just a little bit. The nice thing about doing it in stages, you can bring that down to about 20% or something, is every time you click, it gets a little darker. I'm painting with black. I want to paint with white. And put that back in. Yes, things are starting to happen. The image is starting to become mine, and it maybe says something about yoga too. And I can just keep going. I mean, if I went back to this idea of a pattern, for instance, I just keep playing. I never know what's going to happen. So if I go up to, and I'll do this non-destructively a lot of times. I'll just real quick come over here and create a new layer. Layer 4 sounds good. It's on top, right? And I could throw this away if it doesn't work out. But I'll go ahead and play with the brush, and brushes work with the foreground color, so it's going to be in black for right now. And actually, a pattern. I'm going to go ahead and fill with a pattern now when I think about it. So edit, fill, and instead of black, we'll pick a pattern. And I believe I already selected that pattern once before, so I'll select it again. So I'll click OK. Well, I didn't want to do that one. I hate that pattern. So let's change that. Command Z. Edit, fill, pattern, and here's one I picked it from that flower earlier. And I'm liking the script ones, liking the spiral ones these days, especially with something that's really centered. And I just play with this ring spacing a little bit, just to make a bunch of them. You can bring it out and really get a spiral, but you can bring it back in and make it like a bouquet of stuff, and just playing really. It's got enough light and dark values, so I'm sure it's going to do something. I have no clue as to what. We'll find out in a second. So I'm going to just, and I could play with the scale too and make it a little bit smaller if I wanted to. Give it a little bit more complexity. I want to make sure people see that it's a quasi-lotus. Okay, that's good enough. I'll accept it. Click OK. And doing what you think it would do. And I start to play with some of these guys too. Every time I do this, I start to get the semblance of a different image. Something like that, for instance. And all of it's an accident, and all of it's an iteration. And boy, am I legal with the face now, no? And the pose too. And a much more haunting too. Oop. I usually don't like the dodges, but sometimes they work out really well. Every time I do this, it's another iteration, and it's extraordinary, and it's fun, and really not taking chances because they're disposable little copies. So every time, I usually avoid these. It'll really shake it up though, and run it into a different mood. It's quite beautiful. You can't resist with pattern really. And even something like that might be something to start a whole new image on, Just as an example, we can do iterations upon iterations. So if I kind of take that, for instance, this is the one that I've been building on all along, and just kind of just accept it for a second, and we'll build on that. So if I go to image and duplicate, see the pattern here, click OK, flatten the image so there's no more on the copy, so there's no more of that happening. And then go back to the one I was playing with. Where did it go? Starting to get confused. It's usually the last tab is the one you just saved. There it is. So take that off and go back to this, right? And or even something that's a little more like that. And so let's just duplicate that image, duplicate. So we're building on our images that we've built on. Duplicate, flatten the copy, select all, copy, go to the one that we're building on last, paste. And then, a lot of times I'll just, that new workflow of mine, putting a mask on there, taking the edit menu, filling it with black, and then poking holes in it so we see it again with white. So if I go back in here, and that's not 100%, let's bring that back up to 100% white. Yet another iteration. It never ends. It's just so much fun, Photoshop. So anyways, I hope it gave you some ideas about ways to create graphics and do iterations really fast, and just take chances with your image. Just duplicate your image and leave a little paper trail. And then maybe stop and export a JPEG of the ones that you're liking, or even a TIFF file, save it as a separate file. Storage is so cheap right now. And then we'll take a look at those in progress, and it's all about process. So we'll only usually print one for the final project, and we'll not be printing these. So we'll just be taking a look at these electronically. So So the more iterations you can put online, the more chances you're taking, the better. And I think it's hopefully maybe a little bit therapeutic for you as well, and maybe um, hopefully it'll introduce some fun into your life. Just something we could all use right now. You guys take care, and always contact me anytime you need to. I'm here for you.